Welcome to J is for Justice podcast. If live breaking news and following true crime is your thing, then please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you like what you see in my videos, please consider giving them a thumbs up. That is the second time I have skipped my intro. The day I don't get nervous before a live stream and my heart pound out of my chest and I forget stuff, I'll know I'm burned out. Welcome back to J is for Justice, you guys. My name is Jay. I am your host who is not burned out, but forgot the intro. Welcome in, guys. Before we get started, I have a couple quick announcements. Members, listen up. Tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it is our normal watch party. And tonight we're going to be watching Hell Camp on Netflix. Hell Camp is about camps that weird parents send their kids to when they think they're bad or when they think they're depressed. And this is a huge scandal. There's millions of dollars in this business. It blows my mind. So we're going to be watching that at 7 p.m. Eastern in Discord. If you're not in Discord and you're a member, I know we have about 50, 60 members that aren't in Discord. We have a good 300 members in there now. But if you're not and you need help, let us know. Patreons are also eligible. And then the other thing is tomorrow, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are going to be premiering Courtney Clenny's body cam. So we've got 3 different videos. The first one is going to be when they first arrive on the scene. Then the second one is her arrest. And then the third one is like some witness statements and things like that. So big weekend here at J is for Justice. I hope you will tell all your friends. So good afternoon, Jess and Flo and Meg and all the mods that are here. Shell and Olip and Potato. What's up, Frag and Lisa? Megaphone. This is a reminder to hit the like button and put your chat on live chat if you're watching the chat room. Thank you guys for watching this with me today. Okay, so we're going to be getting into Daybell now. So I struggled with this. And first I'm going to say today is going to be me probably stopping and like filling in some blanks because we're just doing highlights. So I'm going to open up the Q&A part of the chat section. If you guys have any questions, I'll keep an eye on it. And I can ask anything because I've covered this since the beginning. So I know there's a lot of people out there. If you want to watch it beginning to end, I get it. And there's plenty of people that are streaming it beginning to end. It just wasn't for me. The audio sucked. I couldn't listen. I couldn't focus. So I'm doing it my way, and I hope you guys will see it as a good way for you too. So what I'm going to do is I'm bringing in just the new stuff or like the highlighted stuff. Good afternoon, Michael. So a lot of it is repetitive from Lori's trial. If you watch Lori's trial, then you saw a lot of this testimony. So what I'm doing is I'm trimming the fat, so to speak, and I'm going to show you guys the new stuff and like the cross, because that's obviously going to be new. And prior is not as bad as I thought. I didn't get to hear it until I actually downloaded it and kind of tweaked the audio the best I can. Now, it is muffled because of their shit, but I did the best I could. Hey, Love Flowers. Melissa, it's good to see you as well. So go ahead and throw your questions in there as we go, and I'll try to fill in the blanks. And then we have a second stream following this for day 2. So we're going to skip through day 1, and then we're going to move into day 2 with a separate stream. And then later on, for those of you that don't like me cutting in, I'll be releasing all of them in their entirety without me talking. So I hope that makes sense. Let's get started. To begin with, we are going to start with the clerk reading Chad Daybell's charges so that everybody's clear on the charges. Good to see you guys as well. We have our chin emoji back for the members. By the hair of my chin. Chad's chin, and he's got a different angle this time. So enjoy the stream, guys. Let me know if you have any questions. Like I said, I'll be coming back and checking chat, but I'm going to be focusing on this and kind of filling you guys in. So I'm glad that you're glad I'm doing it that way, Jess. There's so much going on. There really is. Jess says she's here for the damn commentary. I know, Melissa. I almost feel like they're doing it on purpose. I think I said that the other day. I was like, it's almost on purpose. And I'm hoping that the Koberger thing is, I mean, it hasn't been terrible with Koberger. It hasn't been the best, but it's definitely not the worst. This is the worst I've ever heard. So I don't know. All right, so let's get started. We're going to listen to the clerk read his charges. And I have captions.
So this time then, I am going to have the clerk read the amended and redacted indictment to you. Madam Clerk, if you're ready to read the amended indictment, please do that at this time.
The captions are on for you guys too.
In the District Court of the 7th Judicial District of the State of Idaho and in for the County of Fremont. State of Idaho plaintiff versus Chad Daybell defendant, case number CR 22211623, amended indictment. Chad Daybell is accused by the grand jury of Fremont County of this indictment as follows. Count 1, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and grand theft by deception. The defendants, Chad Daybell and/or Lori Noreen Ballo and/or Alex Cox, deceased, and/or other co-conspirators, both known and unknown, on or between the dates of October 26, 2018, and continuing until January 15, 2020, in the County of Madison, State of Idaho, and elsewhere, including Fremont County, Idaho, and as part of the continuing criminal transaction. And
it gets better, though. She's terrible.
In Madison and Fremont counties, Idaho.
It definitely gets better.
Willfully and knowingly combine, conspire, confederate, and agree to commit murder in the first degree of Heidi Ryan and to commit grand theft by deception.
He's got different charges than Lori, so that's why I'm playing this.
Daybell, on or between the 8th and 9th day of September 2019, in the County of Madison, State of Idaho, and as part of a common scheme or plan for continuing criminal transactions in Madison and Fremont counties in Idaho, were concerned in the commission of a first-degree murder and did aid and abet its commission, or not being present, advised and encouraged its commission, or by command compelled another to commit
I'm going to speed this up a little bit.
Did so with malice aforethought, who did so willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation, which resulted in the death of a human being, to wit, either killed Heidi Ryan and or assist in the killing of Heidi Ryan and or did encourage the killing of Heidi Ryan and or did command another to kill Heidi Ryan in violation of the Count 3, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and grand theft by deception. The defendants, Chad Daybell and or Lori Noreen Ballo and or Alex Cox, deceased, and or other co-conspirators, both known and unknown, on or between the dates of October 26, 2018, and continuing until January 15, 2020, excuse me, in the County of Madison, State of Idaho, and elsewhere, including Fremont County, Idaho, and as part of the continuing criminal transaction and common scheme or plan in Madison and Fremont counties, Idaho, did willfully and knowingly combine, conspire, confederate, and agree to commit murder in the first degree of Joshua Jackson Vallow.
A hard time hearing. Do you mind pulling your microphone down and then aiming it up at your chin?
Count 4, first degree murder.
That was for you, Mike.
The defendant, Chad Guy Daybell, on or between the 8th and 9th day of September 2018 in the county of Madison, state of Idaho, and as part of a common scheme or plan for continuing criminal transactions between Madison and Fremont counties in Idaho, were concerned in the commission of a first degree murder and did aid and abet in its commission, for not being present, advised and encouraged its commission, or by command compelled another to commit the crime, and did so with malice aforethought, and did so willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation, which resulted in the death of a human being. To wit, did either kill J.J. Vallow and or assist in the killing of J.J. Vallow, and or did encourage the killing of J.J. Vallow, and or did command another to kill J.J. Vallow in violation of Idaho code. Count 5, conspiracy to commit first degree murder. The defendants, Chad Guy Daybell and or Lori Noreen Vallow and or Alex Cox, deceased, and or other co-conspirators, both known and unknown, on or between the dates of October 26, 2018, and continuing until January 15, 2020, in the county of Fremont, state of Idaho, and elsewhere, including Madison County, Idaho, and as part of a continuing criminal transaction in common scheme or plan in Fremont and Madison counties, Idaho, did willfully and knowingly combine, conspire, confederate, and agree to commit murder in the first degree of Tammy Daybell, and did combine or conspire to commit murder, and one or more of such persons did an act to effect the object of combination or conspiracy. Count 6, first degree murder. The defendant, Chad Guy Daybell, on October 18 to 19, 2019, in the county of Fremont, state of Idaho, was concerned in the commission of first degree murder and did aid and abet in its commission.
I think this might be Tammy.
Advised and encouraged its commission, or by command compelled another to commit the crime, and did so with malice aforethought, and did so willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation, which resulted in the death of a human being. To wit, did either kill Tammy Daybell and or assist in the killing of Tammy Daybell, and or did encourage the killing of Tammy Daybell, and or did command another to kill Tammy Daybell in violation of Idaho code. Count 7, insurance fraud. The defendant, Chad Guy Daybell, on or about October 19, 2019 through October 30, 2019, in the county of Madison, state of Idaho, did with the intent to defraud or deceive an insurer for the purpose of obtaining any money or benefit, insurer or other person, a statement as part of or in support of a claim for payment or benefit, knowing that such statement contained false, incomplete, or misleading information concerning any fact or thing material to such claim. To wit, did present and or cause to be presented an insurance beneficiary form to Life Map Assurance Company in violation of Idaho code.
Frack.
Count 9, insurance fraud. That the defendant, Chad Guy Daybell, on or about October 19, 2019 through October 31, 2019, in the county of Madison, state of Idaho, did with the intent to defraud or deceive an insurer for the purpose of obtaining any money or benefit, insurer or other person, a statement as part of or in support of a claim for payment or benefit, knowing that such statement contained false, incomplete, or misleading information concerning any fact or material thing to such claim. To wit, did present and or cause to be presented an insurance beneficiary form to Primerica Life Insurance Company in violation of Idaho code. Signed as a true bill on the 24th day of May, 2021, signed by the deputy presiding grand juror, acting as presiding grand juror in Fremont County, state of Idaho. And to these charges, the defendant consented the plea of not guilty.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. for
That was
reading the
painless,
drafted
wasn't it?
Amended indictment. In this case, again, I will advise the jurors, remember the indictment is a description of charges. It is not evidence. That concludes the court's opening instructions and the reading of the indictment. The jury's been sworn as well. The next matter we would take up then are opening statements.
Here we
And
go,
require the state-
guys.
Is the state ready to proceed with openings?
Yes, Your Honor.
Who will be giving the opening statement?
I will remember.
Very well.
Rob
Mr.
Wood.
You may present.
All right. So Rob Wood is about to give us his opening statements, and I'm going to keep it sped up a little. It'll get us through a little bit faster. But this is Rob Wood. This is the prosecutor, and his opening statements are going to be quite a bit different than Lori's because there are different charges.
2 dead children.
And this is how he starts it out, like, boom, 2 dead children. When I heard that, I was like, damn. And I'm not going to lie. I listened to this when it first aired, like when it was live, first aired. I sound really old, but I couldn't make out what any of this was. It was just so garbled, and I think that my brain was focusing so much on trying to hear that I didn't listen. So I hope that you guys get a lot out of this because, man, we've been following this crazy mess for too long to say, F Daybell, right? This is for JJ. This is for Tylee. This is for Charles. And this is for Tammy and all of their family. I mean, look at Larry Woodcock. He's lost 100 pounds since this happened, since he lost his grandson. And he's still there. So I'm seeing this through to the end. I hope you guys will too.
Who will be giving the opening statement? I will remember very well. Mr. Wood, you may present.
Two dead children buried in the defendant Chad Daybell's backyard in September of 2019. The next month, his wife is found dead in their marital bed. 17 days after the death of his wife, Tammy Daybell, this defendant is photographed laughing and dancing on a beach in Hawaii at his wedding. It's Lori Vallow, a woman who was his mistress and the mother of the children, buried in the graves on his property. 3 dead bodies. This defendant believed he had a right beyond the ordinary. When he had a chance at what he considered his rightful destiny, he made sure that no person or no law would stand in his way. His desire for sex, money, and power led him to pursue those ambitions. And this pursuit led to the deaths of his wife and Lori's 2 innocent children.
Now, he used the same thing, money, sex, and power, in Lori's as well.
Chad Daybell is an author who wrote books about the apocalypse. During this trial, you will hear a story more troubling. And the story is real. Chapter 1. The defendant was a seemingly ordinary man. You'll see that he craved significance. He worked in journalism, and he worked as a sexton in a graveyard. He married his wife Tammy in 1990 after meeting at Brigham Young University, and they settled in Utah. As a full-time homemaker and mother, Tammy's love for her family was boundless. Together, Tammy and the defendant started a small publishing company, which Tammy supported in many ways. They had 5 children together. They moved to Idaho, where Tammy became a beloved school librarian. She was devoted to service, her community, and her faith. But for this defendant, that ordinary existence was not enough. Chapter 2. Lori Vallow was a homemaker from Arizona. Your Honor, this mic just...
Sorry, Mr. Wood. Let's see if we get a replacement mic.
They need a
I think
replace.
I got it working now.
Okay.
I
A hard time
noticed
hearing.
that the
Do you
PowerPoint is
mind
not up.
pulling your microphone down and then aiming it up at your chin?
Okay, I didn't turn it off this time, so
We might have a bad battery.
I think that it's so funny that people are watching old trials from the 90s before we even had high def. And they can see and hear better.
You want to
That's messed up.
screen as well.
Your Honor, it's up on the screen, and I can plug in the HDMI.
And they're still using a pull down.
Transfer.
Oh my God. It literally feels like I'm at a convention.
Let's see if we can get some help to maybe see if we can get the signal to work on that.
I didn't see this part or I would have cut it out, but it's actually kind of comical. Welcome to Idaho.
Sorry. Can I proceed?
Yeah, but I'm still not sure on the mic. Is that not working?
Check.
Kind of loses the whole emotion, you know?
Apologies for the interruption. Writing down. Chapter 2. Lori Vallow was a homemaker from Arizona. She was married to her 4th husband, Charles Vallow, and she was the mother to Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow. Tylee was a normal, vibrant teenage girl. She loved her friends. You'll hear that she loved her Jeep. She loved Chipotle. She loved her little brother, JJ. JJ was a 7-year-old boy on the autism spectrum. He required extensive special care. He loved his sister. You'll hear about a pivotal date that set in motion the deaths of Tammy, Heidi, and JJ. October 26, 2018. That was a day when Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow met at a religious conference in St. George, Utah, where they were introduced by a mutual acquaintance. At this time, both still married to other spouses. That introduction set in motion the reality you're going to hear about. We know what happened next through the defendant's own words. You'll hear. Though both married, Chad and Lori began to have an affair. You will hear excerpts from the defendant's extended text messages to Lori that reveal his mindset and his motivations. In his thirst for sex, power, and money, Chad created an alternate reality where they called themselves James and Elena, names that Chad claimed were from past lives they had put together. The defendant's text messages reveal their story of lust and their plan for a future together. Chad Daybell wrote that upon meeting Lori Vallow, he experienced a happiness unmatched by anything else in his 50 years. He was captivated by her appearance, so much so he said she was out of his league. You will hear evidence in his own words, how he was taken by her beauty and spoke about their sexual encounters on many occasions. More than anything else, Chad's obsession with Lori was rooted in her adoration for him. She was the mirror reflecting the grandeur he saw in himself. He called her an exalted goddess. He told her in writing that she had returned to earth
goddess.
on a special mission. Part of that mission included being with him. They soon came together and turned
He told Lori she was an exalted goddess.
their dreams into a plan for the future. One free from what they called obstacles, and those obstacles were Tylee, JJ, and Tammy. Chapter 3. You'll hear that in the world that Chad and Lori planned for themselves, they identified those who stood in the way of their dream as dark. Their spouses, Lori's own children, and any who opposed them were labeled sometimes as dark spirits or even zombies. This was more than an alleged belief of frightening labor. The evidence will show that it was a convenient narrative that dehumanized people who stood in their way and who were labeled as obstacles.
You're just a plain
This
goddess,
narrative
Flo.
gave them the pretext to remove people from this world for their own good. Chad and Lori preached that only through spiritual intervention, what they sometimes called casting, sometimes through burning,
Oh, the
or even through death,
casting.
that
I
these
forgot
dark
about
spirits would cleanse.
casting.
Enter Alex Cox, Lori's devoted brother. Chad and Lori manipulated Alex with promises of spiritual rewards. They wielded their influence over Alex, drawing him into their plotting and planning of their own future. After the deaths of Tylee, JJ, and Tammy, Chad Daybell gave Alex a blessing. This blessing was reported by Lori, who was present. And in that blessing, he said to Alex, "You have earned the privilege to be a member of their exclusive religious group." And he also said to him, "You have already assisted us in ways that can never be repaid." But you will also see other text messages. Chad and Lori discussed more earthly concerns, that Alex could be the one to implicate them. Alex knew this as well. Shortly before he died, on December 12, 2019, he told his wife, Zulana Pastenis, who you will hear from, he was afraid he was going to be Chad and Lori's fallback. Chapter 4.
The
Once
fall
their calculated
guy,
plan was
Alex.
devised, it only took months to execute and remove perceived obstacles in Chad Daybell's path to a new life. Charles Vallow, Lori's husband, who was labeled as dark by the defendant, was shot and killed by Alex Cox in Arizona. Lori stood to gain $1 million, money that could fund Chad and Lori's future. Yet following Charles's death, Lori Vallow awaited a $1 million life insurance payout that never came, only to learn that the beneficiary was no longer her. Upon learning she would not receive that insurance money, Lori would text Chad, "I'll still get the $4,000 a month from SS, meaning Social Security." Chad replied to her in a text that read, "It will be interesting to see if it got changed after he had 2 bullets in his chest." Tylee Ryan, also branded dark and a zombie, was last seen on September 8, 2019. Subsequent investigations revealed the horrifying truth. Her remains, charred and dismembered, were found in a grave on Chad Daybell's property. Without Charles's $1 million in insurance money to support them, Lori Vallow continued to illegally receive Tylee's Social Security benefits, provided after the death of Tylee's biological father, who had been Lori's third husband. According to this defendant, JJ Vallow, Lori's son, was also possessed. After he was labeled as a dark entity, his fate was no less tragic than his sister's. His young life was also planned. Later, his bound body was discovered buried in Chad's backyard, his death by suffocation. Yet while JJ was missing, Lori continued to illegally receive JJ's Social Security benefit, money provided by Charles Dallow's dad. Tammy Daybell, a vivacious, healthy mother, was another individual labeled as a dark spirit to be removed. On October 9th of 2019, she reported being shot at night near her home by a man covered in black. She thought it was a paintball gun. On October 19th, 10 days later, she died in her own home with her husband present. This was soon after an increase in the value of her life insurance to more than $400,000. This defendant rapidly cashed in that life insurance and began looking for condos in Hawaii with Lori. You'll see the rental application he submitted for a couple with no kids. Medical examiners would later determine that the only reasonable explanation for Tammy's death was not of natural causes, but rather a homicide. In fact, you will hear from multiple witnesses that Chad predicted multiple times that Tammy would die of a broken back. Chapter 5.
How many chapters you got?
17 days after his wife's death, Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow got married and celebrated on a beach in Hawaii, symbolizing what he called their eternal union. Chad and Lori were preparing their wedding well before Tammy's death. Lori was shopping for wedding rings while Tammy was still alive. Now, without the earthly obstacles of spouses and young children, and with Tammy's insurance policy and the children's Social Security funds, they could live the life Chad and Lori wanted. Nothing was going to stand in their way. Chapter 6. Unfortunately for this defendant, reality soon shattered their bliss. Two things led law enforcement to his and Lori's door. On October 2nd, 2019, Lori Vallow's nephew-in-law, a man named Brandon Boudreaux, was shot at in Arizona by someone from what he believed was Tyler's Jeep. Law enforcement in Arizona investigating Brandon's shooting contacted law enforcement in Fremont County, Idaho, to look for Alex Cox and for Tyler's Jeep. And you'll hear that that Jeep was later found in Rexford, Idaho, in Madison County.
Wait for Pryor, you guys.
Meanwhile, JJ Vallow's grandmother, concerned that she hadn't seen or heard from him in months, asked police for help. The police followed up and located Lori in Rexford, Idaho, where the police did a welfare check at Lori's apartment. Law enforcement arrived at Lori's door on November 26, 2019. When asked about Lori, Chad first told law enforcement he didn't know her very well, despite the fact that they were married and had been in a relationship for over a year. Lies by Lori to police about JJ and Tylee's whereabouts, and then a move to Hawaii, and Lori's unwillingness to present her children to law enforcement to prove their well-being led to her arrest and extradition. As Lori refused to produce her children, law enforcement continued their search for Tylee and JJ. During that search, they located a unique text message that this defendant, Chad Daybell, had sent to his wife Tammy on September 9, 2019, which was the day after Heidi Broussard's last known appearance.
Yep, she did, Melissa.
You'll hear from the FBI agent who found that message. But this message seemed longer than his usual text to Tammy, and it had a more conversational tone. In that text, Chad claimed he'd had an interesting warning, that he'd shot a raccoon, that he'd buried it in what they called the pet cemetery, and that he'd had a fire on the property where he burned some wind debris. When law enforcement finally went to the defendant's property the following June, they didn't find a raccoon. They found Tylee's burnt remains that were buried in the pet cemetery. And they found JJ nearby, buried under a tree near a pond. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been told this would be a lengthy trial. You will hear from many witnesses. You will hear a lot of evidence. You're going to hear a lot of dates. The following is just a timeline of major events to help understand when these things took place. October 26, 2018, Chad and Lori meet in St. George, Utah. July 11, 2019, Charles Vallow, Lori's husband, shot and killed by Alex Cox. Between August 31st and September 1st, Lori, Alex Cox, and Tylee and JJ moved to Rexford, Idaho, just a few miles south of the defendant's home. Tylee's last known sighting was September 8, 2019. The text I just spoke of about the raccoon was sent by the defendant to his wife September 9, 2019. JJ's last known sight you'll hear about September 22nd. The attempted homicide of Brandon Boudreaux in Arizona was October 2nd. The shooting I mentioned of Tammy, the shooting at her, the unsuccessful shooting, October 9th, 2019. Tammy's death, October 19th, 2018. 17 days later, Chad and Lori married in Hawaii. Law enforcement did a welfare check looking for JJ November 26, 2019 in Rexford, Idaho. November 26th and 27th, Chad and Lori leave town. June 9th, 2020, Tylee and JJ's remains are found on Chad's property.
I'll never forget that day when the remains
As I
were
said, we're
found.
going to hear a lot of
It
evidence
was
from
horrible.
a lot of witnesses. And there's going to be kind of different groups of evidence you're going to hear from. You'll hear from law enforcement, some of whom will give you a broad overview of the investigation and what they did, how the search from Tylee and JJ drew to a case of murder. You'll hear how it began by people who knew Lori and Chad, the James and Elaine. You'll hear about the James and Elaine story and about their relationship with each other and how they pursued
Hey,
their
Gene.
dream, their plan for a life together. You'll hear in the defendant's own words, people referred to as obstacles, how they need to be gotten rid of. You're going to hear financial evidence. You'll hear from an FBI forensic accountant and a detective, a Social Security administrator, investigator, who will talk about the finances involved in this case. You'll hear more from law enforcement, from multiple law enforcement agencies, the Rexford Police, Fremont County
Headphones.
Sheriff's Department, the FBI, Social Security
It's
Administration,
my buddy
about the investigation
headphones.
into these crimes. You will see forensic evidence. You'll see DNA testing to identify the body of Tylee. You'll see DNA testing that showed DNA from Tylee was found on at least 2 tools in the defendant's shed. You'll hear digital evidence dealing with geolocation data tied to certain phones that were used in this case. You'll hear from Hawaii law enforcement about searches they performed in Hawaii on the defendant and his wife. And finally, you will hear many of this defendant's own words. You will hear voice recordings of this defendant.
Ooh.
You'll hear, recorded phone calls between him and his wife, Lori Daybell. You'll read multiple texts that he and Lori sent back.
Texts,
texts.
phone calls, recordings. Ooh la la.
Chapter 9, what's unwritten. The defendant stands before you today, charged with multiple crimes. First-degree murder for the death of Tammy Daybell. First-degree murder for the death of Tylee Ryan. First-degree murder for the death of JJ Vallow. Conspiracy to commit murder of
Hey,
Tammy Daybell.
Steph.
Conspiracy to commit murder and grant theft by deception, the death of Heidi Ryan. Conspiracy to commit murder and grant theft by deception, for the death of JJ Vallow, and insurance fraud. 2 dead children buried in this defendant's backyard. The next month, his wife, dead, in their bed. 17 days later, this defendant marries Lori Vallow. Members of the jury, days or probably weeks from now, when the evidence in this trial is fully unfolded, we will have the opportunity to speak with you again. And at that time, we will ask you to end this horrible narrative. Your verdict will be the link that writes the final chapter of this tragic saga. A chapter that delivers justice for Tammy, justice for JJ, and justice for Tylee. Thank you.
All right. So if you're just joining, we watched just Chad's charges and then the opening statements of the prosecutor. And if you weren't here earlier, what I'm going to do is, since this is a lot of it's repetitive from Lori's trial and there's plenty of people that are covering the whole thing, I'm going to take highlights and things that I didn't know, and I'm going to download it, make the audio a little bit better at least, and then we can replay it in the evenings. This is actually Chad's trial. They already had Lori's, so this is for Chad now. But a lot of it's the same, you know what I mean? So when they bring in the investigators, they bring in the cops, a lot of it's the same, except for the cross-examination. So I listened to it and then I'm like, okay, I'll pull this because I haven't heard this before. So I hope you guys enjoy. This is going to be John Pryor now
Thank you.
with his opening statements. This is Chad Daybell's lawyer. He's doing it all by himself, y'all. He's fighting this death penalty case alone. So tell me how this works. I mean, I know he was like hired by Daybell. Then Daybell didn't have any money anymore. So John Pryor isn't getting paid. He's doing it for free. Because if he quit, then they'd have to wait for all these other trials. They probably wouldn't even get to it. So the judge said no. And he made Pryor do this. So I guess they made other state attorneys available to him for help. But I don't know. It's weird. But he's all by himself. Imagine Ann Taylor just being the only one. This dude isn't even death penalty certified, and she is. And Ann Taylor has a team. It's weird, isn't it?
Mr. Wood, that will conclude the opening statement of the state. Mr. Pryor, a couple of questions. First, is the defense going to give an opening statement now or defer until later? And second, if
Coming in hot.
Just like the fajita. Thank you, honey. Here comes Mr. Pryor, and it's not as painful as you thought it would be.
We've concluded our morning recess. We're back on the record on KCR 22-21-16-23, State of Idaho versus Chad Daybell. This is the time we'll next have opening statements by the defense. Mr. Pryor, is the defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor. May I have the post permission to enter the well?
You may.
Thank you.
I might have to slow him down.
And maybe check that microphone and make sure it is.
He talks
okay?
a little bit faster. Let's see how he is. Slow. Or normal.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As an introduction, I'm John Pryor. I'm the defense attorney for Mr. Daybell, and I'm from Meridian, Idaho. I'm an attorney from Meridian, Idaho, over here on the west side of the state. I want to talk to you a little bit today, and at my age, video presentations are not something that would come easy to me. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about my view of the case and the facts and evidence. And what's important are facts and evidence. I think that when we went through the jury selection process, we talked about facts and we talked about evidence. And the judge gave you an instruction to talk to you a little bit about you take into consideration the facts of this case and not be distracted by other things. Don't be distracted by speculation. Don't be distracted by guesses or assumptions or hunches. It all comes down to facts and evidence. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the facts and evidence in this case. Chad Daybell, and I'm learning this, and I've had some time to learn about this because it didn't come natural to me. But Chad Daybell went on what's called a mission early on in his life. And I guess what a mission is, I'm not familiar with that, but I guess what a mission is they go away to a location and they talk to people about their religious beliefs. And Chad's faith, that was important as part of his faith. And when they return from these missions, they start the process of moving on with their lives. And when Chad got back from doing his mission in New Jersey, he met Tammy Daybell. Another fact that I discovered, and you'll hear a little bit about, is that Chad had an extended engagement, had an extended by his faith standards romance before they got married. Chad and Tammy dated for approximately 6 months. And what I understand is by their nature, 6 months is an extended dating process before you end up getting married. So after 6 months, they got married. They were
Okay, so here we go. Tammy met Chad when they were still teenagers. I think they were like 18, 19, 17, 18. And they only dated 6 months. Can you imagine how much they changed from that age? It's so weird. I mean, a lot of people, get married after 6 months, but to say that that's like, oh, for them, that is extensive, like weird. It's this religious thing, like, oh, he's Mormon, okay.
They were married in Utah and proceeded then to have children. They have 5 children, now all 5 adult children. At some point, they moved back here to Idaho, or moved to Idaho, And they started a small publishing company. And you'll hear testimony that the publishing company was predominantly run by Tammy. Tammy managed it. Tammy was the brains behind the company. And Tammy basically took the reins and did everything that was necessary to move this publishing company. It was a small publishing company, a very small publishing company. And what they did is basically publish books. Chad would write these books. And he would write these books about his religious experiences. In his faith, he had certain beliefs, faith that he practiced. You know, when he went on his mission, when he, read his interpretation of the books that he used for his faith, he started writing books about things that were consistent with his faith. Things like premonitions. We've all heard of premonitions, about being able to predict things, about being able to see maybe when things happen. And some people believe in that, some people don't. Some people have personally experienced that, or I've been here before. But he writes about his premonitions. He writes about...
He's doing the best he can to kind of normalize this weird shiz.
Good and evil, and what it means to be good, what it means to be evil. He writes about dark and light. He writes about subjects that are a little darker, like death, and maybe the coming of the end of things, and when his Savior in his mind is going to come back, and maybe there'll be some kind of a redemption of some sort.
His
But his
Savior
books
in
covered a
his
lot of subjects like that, and they were all based on fiction. In other words, he was writing these books about theories and things that came into his head, and he would write these stories. But he also wrote children's books. And he wrote books.
Wait, what? He wrote children's books? Burn all of those now.
For teenagers. And he wrote these books about adventures and then, some crazy ideas about things that kids and teenagers get involved in.
Oh, fuck. We need to find Chad Daybell's children and teenage geared books. That is downright disturbing.
In about October of 2018, Chad was going out and he was invited by one of the witnesses that you'll hear in this case to speak about his books.
Melanie
and this
Gibb.
was not uncommon. He would travel and he would be asked to say, well, come and talk about some of the things that you believe in. You've talked about these premonitions, some life experiences. You're going to hear testimony about that. And he was invited on one particular occasion in late October. And he attended this, and while he was there trying to sell his books, and like most of us who are business people, the focus of these meetings really was for Chad to try to get his books published, because that's how he made a living. And he was there in one of his booths trying
Well, what happened to the publishing company?
to promote his books, and he laid them out there. And this beautifully stunning woman named Lori Vallow comes up. And she starts giving him a lot of attention. And she pursued him. And she encouraged him. And you'll hear testimony that she went so far as to grab behind the booth and sort of help him in trying to sell some of his books. She obviously had an interest, and maybe she felt that he was this publisher, or maybe she had an opinion. You'll hear testimony about that. And then after the seminar, there was a length of time where there was no contact between the two of them. Month and a half, 2 months. And during that time, Chad Daybell went on his day-to-day life. He'd been married to Tammy for some 29 years, has no remarkable background of any kind. I think the testimony we'll offer will show he had a speeding ticket in 2005. But Lori Vallow was a different story.
Oh, here we go.
Lori Vallow was someone who, right out of high school, married her first husband. You'll hear testimony about this.
What a hussy.
That marriage was very short-lived. Very short-lived. She then married husband number 2 a few years later. And again, very short-lived marriage.
Oh, what a hussy.
And there's some testimony indication that there were some problems with the marriage that caused the breakup. But the theme seems to be that Lori's brother Alex, and you're going to hear about Alex Cox. Alex Cox was Lori's protector.
It was a little
Alex
more than
Cox
that.
would do anything and everything to protect, aid, and assist Lori Vallow in whatever her endeavors, without unbridled question. Anything.
Anything without unbridled question. This is Lori Vallow's own brother, Alex. Do we think that John Pryor might expose some Cox family secrets? Do we think that they may expose some Cox family secrets?
And if Alex Cox even perceived that there was a problem, Alex Cox reacted. You're going to hear testimony that in 2007, I believe it was in August of 2007, Lori Vallow had finished up going through her third marriage with Joseph Ryan. It was a tumultuous, you'll hear testimony that it was a tumultuous marriage, a terrible marriage. And Lori Vallow made accusations against Joseph Ryan of abusing their child, Tylee. Yes, the same Tylee. And during one of the visits of 2007, folks, and I want to tell you, you're going to hear testimony that in 2007, Chad Daybell didn't even know Lori Vallow existed. But Alex Cox, after one of the exchanges and the visitations with Tylee, Alex Cox approached Joseph Ryan and shot him with a taser and assaulted him. Was eventually charged with aggravated assault, was eventually put in jail, and had this on his record. And there was representation, the facts would suggest that at the time Joseph Ryan feared for his life. This was a serious situation. But it set the pattern for what we're dealing with Alex Cox. Whenever there was a problem or a threat to Lori Vallow, you'll hear testimony that Alex Cox came to the rescue. But Alex Cox would run without even question and do whatever was necessary to solve Lori Vallow's problems. We're going to fast forward then.
Okay, now I don't think he's lying. I think that's spot on. Alex Cox would do anything for his sister. Why? We don't know exactly. We can speculate. You know, maybe that's how it is in their family, but we don't know for sure. So he's spot on about all of this with Alex. However, Alex is dead. So I think Alex is going to be completely blamed for this. And Lori is going to be made to look like she had this chaotic life before Chad's chin came in the picture, which, let you guys know, Chad's chin arrived in the picture about a year before she actually met him in person. Make that make sense. All right, let's get back to Pryor.
2019. Lori Vallow is still married to Charles Vallow. And the prosecuting attorney mentioned this. Yes, Chad Daybell at that point, coming in January and February, started to have communications with Lori Vallow. And yes, folks, it turned into an inappropriate relationship. 2019 forward. And yes, he was engaging in discussions. He was engaging in contact with her. All of the things that the prosecutor talked about in terms of a relationship. But subsequent to the seriousness of this relationship getting rolling, Alex Cox was at a visitation in 2019 with Charles Vallow. And Lori Vallow was there. Tylee Ryan was there. JJ was there. They were all present. And during that altercation and that supposed visit, much like with Joseph Ryan, Alex Cox took out a gun and shot Charles Vallow. And then after calling 911, he then finished the job and walked up to him in close range, finished him off. Now, you're going to hear testimony that in some way Chad Daybell was implicated in that. And you're going to hear further testimony that he was not. You're going to hear testimony and see documentation that suggests that the prosecuting attorney on review of this indicated that there is no likelihood of conviction of Chad Daybell. You'll hear testimony that Chad Daybell had nothing to do with the execution by Alex Cox, Charles Vallow. And the same for Brandon Boudreaux. You will hear that Chad Daybell is not being pursued for any involvement in the Brandon Boudreaux attempted murder. Those occurred, and those are separate, as well as the Charles Vallow. So what we have is we have a situation where someone who's 29 years old, Chad Daybell, 29 years of marriage with Tammy Daybell, no discernible issues in his life. And then Lori Vallow comes in the picture, Miss Texas, with her testimony about this beautiful, vivacious woman, very sexual person, and very...
He says he's making it sound like Chad was this family man. He ran this little publishing company with his librarian wife, who was such a good person. He was well known. He was liked. Then he met Miss Texas. Bring it all in. This sex-driven sex goddess like Chad has never seen before. Blew his mind, and he was hooked. This is comical. What else? What other defense can you use other than Lori and Alex were psychopaths, and he got sucked into their shit?
Daybell, no discernible issues in his life. And then Lori Vallow comes in the picture, Miss Texas, with her testimony about this beautiful, vivacious woman, very sexual person, and very manipulative. And she knows how to get what she wants. And she drew Chad Daybell into a relationship, and an unfortunate relationship, that Chad fell into. After that, things started rolling, and issues started happening, but eventually, yes, there was a murder, and there was a burial. And you've heard discussion about the backyard of Chad Daybell. Well, we have a 4.5-acre farm in Fremont County, Idaho. And you'll hear testimony that the body of J.J. Vallow was discovered behind an irrigation pond and a tree out in the pasture. So technically, yes, maybe the backyard, but more accurately described as the pasture, hidden behind a tree. You're going to hear testimony that also in the middle of this pasture was a raspberry patch, former raspberry patch that was then turned into a place for them to bury the cats, the dogs, and all of the animals on the farm.
So there, what? The raspberry patch turned into a little animal cemetery.
Okay. Again, out in the pasture of the field and not the backyard. You'll hear testimony about that. You're going to hear from 4 experts that I'm going to bring forward. And these 4 experts, the first one is going to be Dr. Greg Hampenkian. And Dr. Hampenkian is a bit of a notable local from Boise State University. And Dr. Hampenkian is a DNA expert.
Hi, Maury.
Considered one of the best DNA experts. He's been involved and has significant work that he's done on both the defense and for the prosecution. He was involved and led the team with Amanda Knox in Italy that got her exonerated because of the DNA evidence. He has substantial experience. And anybody or anyone who knows anything about DNA goes to Dr. Hampenkian first, because he is the guy. And Dr. Hampenkian is going to talk a little bit about DNA evidence that's found on the scene. Dr. Hampenkian is going to talk about the fingerprint on the plastic that J.J. Vallow was discovered in, was that of Alex Cox. Dr. Hampenkian is going to talk about the hair sample that was found on the plastic of Alex Cox. And then
okay, so this is what I want to pay attention to. They're talking about the hairs found. You know, we paid attention to the hairs found in Rex Heuermann case. We've got, his wife, the Long Island serial killer's wife and daughter's hair on the bodies. There's going to be something similar here. What's up, Troy?
Lori Vallow. Dr. Hanpenkian is going to talk about several, and I mean several other hairs that were found on the plastic of J.J. Vallow. But he's also going to say that there was no DNA evidence, no hair sample of Chad Daybell, on Tylee Ryan, or on J.J. Vallow. You're then going to hear from Dr. Raven. Dr. Raven is a forensic pathologist, and she's going to talk a little bit about the circumstances surrounding Tammy Daybell. And what Dr. Raven is going to say is that there's no indication that this is either a homicide or any other crime, and that the only conclusion she can come to is you can't determine what the cause of death was. There's no way to determine it. Tammy Daybell was buried. You'll hear testimony about that. And then a short time later, the police officers showed up and they dug her body up after she'd been buried, after she was laid to rest, and then continued after the body was pulled out of the ground and continued to examine it for whatever they were looking for.
Oh, that's awesome, Karchi.
And what you're going to find is based on that, Dr. Raven's going to say you can't determine what the cause of death is. You're going to hear testimony from the Daybell children, from the children themselves.
Here we go.
4 of the 5 children, I think. Three or 4 of the 5 children. Testimony. They're going to talk about their mother's health struggles. They're going to talk about their mother's use of various.
Okay. So now we're getting on to the Daybell kids testifying. He said 3, 4, or 5 of them. And then he says that they're going to testify about their mom using like natural remedies, you know, to cure her ailments because they want, he wants you to think that Tammy was ill, sickly. And these kids are going to testify to this crap.
Medicinal treatments that she would use, oils that she would put on her leg, medicine and different herbs that she would take, and that her mother was suffering from, a number of maladies, and that she would refuse to go see a doctor or get it treated.
Blaming the victim.
And Dr. Raven's going to enlighten you a little bit about some of the circumstances regarding Tammy Daybell. You're then going to hear from Patrick Eller. He's a forensic digital data examiner. And Patrick Eller is someone who has spent his life in the military working for various agencies, and we'll talk a little bit about that, within the government to do data retrieval and data research. And he's going to talk a little bit about the phone records that are involved in this case. He's going to specifically talk about the travels of Alex Cox, because you are going to hear testimony that Alex Cox went to Chad Daybell's property on the 9th of September. You're going to hear that Alex Cox approached Chad Daybell's property 5 or 6 other times. You're going to hear testimony that Alex Cox was there on the 23rd. And you're going to hear where Alex Cox was in a number of other times and places in his whereabouts and his travels for about a 2.5 month period.
Oh,
and Patrick
shit.
is going to, offer you some information.
So they're going to show us 2.5 months of Alex Cox's footprints. What's up, Kiwi? Good to see you. 2.5 months of Alex Cox phone records and whereabouts prior to this happening.
Information and data to support all of that. And finally, you're going to hear from a forensic anthropologist, and his name's Eric Bartlink. And Mr. Bartlink is going to talk to you a little bit about the nature.
I know, Kiwi, it's garbage.
The nature of how the remains of Tylee were burned. Eric Bartlink is going to talk to you a little bit about the lack of complete skeletal remains and why, when Tylee was dug down the ground, there was not a complete set of skeletal remains. In fact, there were a number of pieces of that were missing.
Wait, what? Did he just say there were pieces of Tylee's remains missing? Huh? So he's saying when they dug up Tylee, that there were pieces of her remains that were not recovered. What is he insinuating? They were put there later?
You're going to hear a lot of evidence, and the judge has talked to us a little bit about not making a decision until you hear all of the evidence. And there's a specific jury instruction that talks about that. The jury instruction is, consider all the evidence. Listen to the instructions from the court on how you're to proceed. Listen to the arguments of the prosecuting attorney and the defense, and then and only then do you make your decision. And at the conclusion of all that evidence, and at the conclusion of the judge's instructions, the arguments of both of the defense attorneys, I'm going to ask you folks to return a verdict not guilty. Thank you, folks. Thank you for your time.
That's it.
Thank you.
And that's it for Pryor. Can you
All right,
believe
that
it?
concludes the opening statement of the defense. Then this time we will commence with presenting evidence. I understand the state does have a first witness to call. Is the state ready and prepared to do that?
Your Honor, the state is prepared. We had spoken with your clerk earlier. We thought we were going to have a brief sidebar.
Okay, let's discuss our schedule and put there in sidebar.
You think he'll take the stand, TJ? Did Alex get cremated? He did, didn't he? I think he did. Yes, he did. Because they had Zalima go there and make sure he was cremated. Because she was the only one. She was his wife, so she was the only one that could make that decision. And I believe she testifies to that. That they told her to get there or something. I remember that vaguely. I can't wait for the cross on these witnesses like Melanie Gibb and her husband David Warlock and Zulima. And do you think Melanie, the other Melanie, will testify? They said he died of a pulmonary embolism, but I think Chad gave him something that did something. They did save tissue? Okay, so now we're going into the next video. So that means I'm going to end this one, and then we're going to do day 2. So you should be redirected. I'm not going to do the whole outro thingy. I'm just going to play the Patreon outro, and I'll see you in the next live stream. It'll start right back up. It's going to portal you through Chad's portal, and I'll see you over there. I want to just keep this organized. So thank you, guys. That concludes the first day of Chad Daybell's trial. We will pick up in day 2. I'll see you guys over there in just a minute. Be sure to check out my other videos and playlists for more true crime content. And if that's not enough, you can join our Patreon. Don't have a tinfoil hat? It's okay. We'll make you one. It's that easy. See you guys in the next video.